Hello and welcome to the British Carriagedriving YouTube channel. My name's Callum Dougan. I'm one of your council members and I'm also the lead for media, communications and promotion. I'm delighted to be joined by Dr Martina Neidhart, who's here to give us a talk on pre-season preparation. Martina, thank you so much for joining us. Really appreciate it. Would you like to give everyone a brief introduction to yourself before we start the presentation?
Sure. My name's Martina. I'm an equine vet, and I had the pleasure when I was still living back in Switzerland that I could work with the Swiss driving team, like more or less all of them, horses and drivers from there. And when we moved to the UK, I had the honor to be elected to be the driving team vet for the single drivers, and I thoroughly enjoyed the 2 years that we have together so far. So the talk today is about preparation for competition, something that I think is really important, no matter if you're coming up from the grassroots and start competing with British driving, or if you're going to do the jump from British driving and national driving onto the international level with the FEI. We try to cover everything in this little preparation talk. Next one, please. So the important points that we're going to go through is vaccination and health requirements. They're actually similar for the FEI and British driving. Then we're going to go quickly through doping. I think it's really important for you how our doping tests run. And never worry when you get into a doping test, because usually the number who's picked for the doping test is already chosen before the competition even started. So most of the time, like in 95%, it's always already pre-picked. So don't worry that something's wrong with your horse. Then we're going to have a quick look at fitness. How can you check your horse is fit enough? Nutrition and supplements are another important part that might be a little bit different for competition horses that are in full competition work and during competition. Same goes for the shoeing. That's a very important part of your horse's fitness and ability to move. And anybody who listened to one of my previous talks knows how it's very close to my heart. The other topic we're going to talk about is travel. How do you get your horses to the competition? Because like we in the UK travel a lot because it's big distances just from how the country is built. And it's really important how you support your horse during travel to get them at the optimal fitness when you arrive at the competition itself. Then we have a quick look at the vet check, how it's done, especially for the people who've never done it before. During competition, there are a few points to look at depending on the weather. And what about electrolytes, nutrition during competition? How do you warm up and cool down your horse? During cool down, what are points to look at specifically? What is the work and checks you have to do after the marathon, so the horses are ready when you have a 3-day competition and fit for the cones the last day. There is a very nice booklet that came out, the rule book from 2025. I'll put you a link under here that came out from British Driving this spring. It's really nice and a full workup, so you get all the information what we're going through here in the booklet on those 29 pages. So for the vaccines, the health requirements for the FEI and British driving, the only vaccine you are required to have and is needed is influenza. Influenza needs to be not older than 6 months and 20 days maximum. Otherwise, you can't start anymore. If you vaccinate your horse the first time, there's new rules now since this year. You have to have a primary course followed by 2 different vaccines. That means you have 3 vaccines in total. You give the first one, then 3 to 4 weeks afterwards, you give the second one. It's not allowed to be older than 60 days. And then the third one needs to be done at the maximum time again of 21 to 60 days. And then every 6 months consecutive. The vaccine is not allowed to be given less than 7 days before the vet check or before the competition officially starts. So it needs to be at least 7 days out and then you can start competing. The other vaccine I highly recommend you to have is tetanus, just because it's everywhere in the ground, and from the smallest scratch they can get a tetanus infection. It's recommended to have a tetanus vaccine at the minimum of every 2 years for horses who are competing. West Nile fever and equine herpes virus 1 and 4 are also recommended but not needed. So I would be choosing which one you need if you go and compete in an area where they have known West Nile cases. Often that's in the south of Europe, where they have like certain mosquitoes who are giving it over. It's recommended. You have broadmares at home, then the herpes virus is also recommended, but it's not needed. The other thing, what's important, the FEI has since this year the requirement that your vaccines need to be recorded on the same day in the app as you're giving that. So you're not allowed to do it 1 day later. It needs to be on the day it's given, and then it needs to be confirmed by one of the FEI vets. Your vet can give it, but you need an FEI vet or a vet who can access the FEI database. The other thing that the FEI has, and that certain national competitions, depending on what British Driving decides is needed, you need to monitor their body temperature prior to arrival at the competition. For the FEI, 3 days prior, so you really have to start before you even travel, and it's down to British Driving for which competitions they would like to have that too. It's just so we know the horses do not have a fever when they arrive. So the next one we're going to talk about is our doping. Like, it's the same testing program, no matter if it's for British Driving or FEI. And like I said, every horse can be tested, no matter at what level you are going. Most of the time it's not done on a local or national level, but they can do it. So just don't get worried when it happens. There is a list of prohibited or banned substances that are not to be allowed in a horse. For example, you can't have a horse competing that had painkillers or is even still having painkillers while you're competing. Certain antibiotics do have a withdrawal time, and stuff that make them, for example, cortisone or anything that helps them to breathe easier. You have to be very careful in what kinds of meds they are on. Please speak with your vet if something's doping relevant or not. Possession of a banned substance while you are on the competition can also be a problem. So make sure you don't bring anything with you that is on the doping list. So leave everything at home. Refusing or failing to show up at a doping test is also ground for elimination. Same as you tried to cheat when they tried to do the doping test, like trying to swap out samples or something. Also, if you are selling banned substances at a competition, that could also get you into trouble. And if you are in connection with a person who did so, this can also bring the team into trouble. So it's always the whole team who gets kind of like the brunt. The same if you prevent somebody from reporting a problem, or when you saw somebody was doing something and said, oh no, don't say it. If it comes out, this can also get you into trouble. So it's not just having it or doing it on purpose. These are all thoughts, what is happening when you do it on purpose. You find quite a lot of information on their British Driving and Clean Sport. That's the other website where you can read up on it. If we go forward for the official doping test, any horse can be selected. By the way, this goes also for the athletes themselves. I'm not very familiar with the doping rules for humans, but I know British Driving has them up too. And during the World Championships, I can tell you, they have also been testing the drivers. So if you need, for example, cortisone inhaler or something like that, or if you need some painkillers or something against allergies, please make sure you have a doctor's notice with you. And I think you also, for certain medication, if you go on national levels and international level, you need also verification from your governing equine body. This would be British Equestrian, to give you a written paper. Yes, this person, we know this person needs this medication, and then you're fine. It's not that you can't have the medications, but you need to have a verification that this is known. As humans, horses, different. There is a set for the drop testing. There's always a box with a sampling kit. There's specific numbers on all the bottles, all the plastic bags where it goes in. Everything has the same number on it, and it comes also with a 3-part document. That 3-part document gets filled out. The first part is kept by the vet. The second part goes with the horse and its owner, and the third part goes with the sample itself to the lab. We always collect, ideally, first urine and then blood. If you can't get urine within an hour, they will take a second blood sample, and that's called the A and the B test. All the samples are usually run on the A test, and then if there is something that's suspicious, they run a B test. So just to make sure, it takes about 7 or 1 to 3 weeks till you get the results back. Make sure when they take the sample, everything is sealed in front of you, and that is like, everything is in there. Nobody can change anything. Keep your paperwork, and that's it. Usually, if you haven't done anything wrong, there should be absolutely no problem. But I know how exciting it is, and you get like, oh my God, I need to go to the doping test. So don't worry about that. This is just to prove you do everything right. Just think about it that way. Next one, please.
Just before we go on, I remember years ago when I was a groom at an international level, I remember the vet pulling us for a doping test after the dressage, and I was a fairly new and experienced groom, and I can tell you I wish I'd done a lot more reading up on doping before we went to an international competition. Thankfully, we didn't have any banned substances or anything like that, but knowing what to expect is always good. From my perspective as a groom, it would have been really good to know this sort of information as to what to expect, but actually it's a really, really straightforward process, and it's not something that you need to be nervous about. The vets are so experienced in doing these, but as a groom, it would be a good idea to be reading up on the different substances that you can use, the different products that you can use. There's certain things that you would use in your everyday grooming kit that might not actually be FEI legal. I remember years ago things like Sudocrem. Sudocrem was banned, and it would be one of the first things that you would put on a cut, and it was banned because of one of the ingredients in it. So, bell and note to all of my fellow grooms, take note and have a look at that, because it is really, really useful to see before an international competition, certainly.
I think the next slide is a little bit about that.
Excellent.
You need to take care of.
Oh, brilliant.
If we look at that, like how to prevent positives, like if most of the positives we see are called that contamination. So this means something that's like not done on purpose, but it happens. Everything, washing your hands before you touch the horses is really important. Like certain hormone creams for people if they need it, certain hand creams, and especially the Regumate for mares. If you have like a mare on the team that needs the Regumate and you have a gelding, if you touch the gelding after you gave the Regumate to the mare before washing your hands and you have just a drop on it, it will make the gelding positive, because they have absolutely a zero limit for those hormones. Littering, it's the same. If you have a mare that is on Regumate and she pees on the hay that the gelding is eating, it will be positive again. So you have to make sure that you keep everything clean and separated from the horses. The same goes for urination on the hay. So if you have dogs running around and stuff like that, you never know what they have eaten. Are they on any painkillers? Did they just get, or are they on cortisone? If that goes onto the hay or what the dogs are eating, this is like really, this could mess up just your reading, because the blood tests are very, very sensitive. They pick up the smallest possible thing. Smoking, and I mean more for recreational uses. If you're smoking cannabis and you have that on your hand and you touch the horse afterwards, it will lead to a doping positive test. Especially if you put the bridle in or something like that with those hands, that can be quite negative. It's not that you can't do it, just make sure you have everything clean afterwards. Certain products, like Callum just mentioned, like also cool gels, are some where we have like stuff in it, because a lot of them do contain some aspirin or something like that. Absolutely no-go. Some hoof oils who contain certain oils, like, you know, like orange or something like that. This can make it positive. Also, remember, kinesio tape is allowed in the stables. The moment they're in the warm-up or during the competition, it counts as a doping positive because it affects how the horses are moving.
Wow.
So this is an immediate elimination if you have somewhere kinesio tape on your horse when you're in the warm-up or even just in the arena training your horse. Not allowed during training. You can have it in the stables or when they're hand grazing outside. Medications, make sure you only use allowed medications and they are well outside the withdrawal times. Please speak with your vet about that. There's some lists about how much withdrawal time certain medications has. It's a big difference in non-steroidal anti-inflammatories, how much withdrawal time we have. If you use a meloxicam, we're 72 hours. If you use a Equiox, we're on 28 days. So it's really, really important if they had a cap previously or an injury or something like that and need it, and you know you're going to go on to competition in the next 2 weeks, that you make your vet aware that you have a competition, so they can give you the right medication that has a short withdrawal time, so you don't end up in a mess. Same goes for antibiotics or cortisone. Like if you have like heaves and they have an allergy or something like that, there are some with a very short withdrawal time and there are some who have weeks of withdrawal time. So they just need to know that it's a competition horse. That's really important. Nutrition too, that's often due to contamination, not your fault. So I recommend you always keep a sample of the food you're giving. There have been cases where they have like just 3 poppy seeds will make your horse doping positive for morphine. We had cases like that with the FEI. Poppy seeds are really, really potent in making your horse doping positive. So if you're eating a bread with little poppy seeds on it, do not go near the horse and wash your hands before you go there.
Wow.
So the other thing is there have been cases from hay making horses doping positive, sometimes even hay provided by the FEI. So synephrine is something that is in hay that's had heat stress, and it will make the horse doping positive even though it's not your fault. Dangerous plants, when you're hand grazing out with the horses, make sure that all the horses are eating. If there's plants you do not know what they are, don't let the horse eat it, not because they're poisonous, but because they can make your horse doping positive. Then make sure you know the people who are around your horse. Like, be careful who's around your horses. I don't want to say there is nasty people everywhere, but sometimes it's unawareness, you know. Like I said, you have somebody coming in with kids, they're eating a bread with poppy seeds and some of it falls onto the hay while they're patting the horse, and you have a doping positive horse. It doesn't have to be malicious. It's just like some people, like Callum said, you do not know, or you know, somebody has hormone creams on their hands because they need it for their own health and they pack the horse. This can cause a doping positive. So, and here again, additional rules for human doping. I'm not an expert on that, so, but there's parts in the rule book where you can read up on that. If you need certain medication, make sure it's conform or that you have the paperwork that's needed to go with it.
Really interesting, Martina. There's a lot of that I actually didn't know till now, all these years later. So I think especially for our British competitors who travel to these international events quite a distance, the last thing you want is to get there and end up having an issue with doping and you don't even get to do the competition. It's a lot of time and a lot of money and a lot of expense gone to for such a small mistake. So yeah, it's really good information.
So, better parts, fitness. There's a really nice saying, train hard, fight easy. And I think that goes also, especially for carriage driving, because our horses need some of the highest fitness levels you need to have. You only find similar fitness levels in eventing and endurance. All the other horses do not have the same level as our carriage horses. Start working up gradually. Either I have here a very nice little how to train from Gillian Higgins, either low intensity with more repetitions or high intensity with less repetitions, and then just change. Only work your horse intensely every 48 hours. Muscles need time to recover, to have like healthy blood flow and everything. So do 1 day work, 1 day. That doesn't mean they need to stay just out in the field. But if you do intense work, the next day is going to be a leisure day. Only do some light lunging or go for a hack or something like that. Cardio fitness can be very well trained. Just hacking out hill work is absolutely brilliant. Or deep ground, if somebody of you is like near where you have a nice beach around you, you can walk or trot them in the water. Absolute brilliant cardio training, builds also up muscles without having a high impact. Interval training is really, really important. That means work intense for 2-3 minutes, give them 3-4 minutes break. Work intense, give them break. This builds up very good cardio fitness. Train more than what you expect during the competition. So if you know you're going somewhere where your marathon is going to be 8 kilometers, then and then another 8 kilometers. So your horse needs to be able to do at least 16 to 18 kilometers without any problem. So you rather try and train for 18 kilometers fitness, that they're fit at the end of that, than just for 10, because then you're going to struggle, or just for even 16. So I would always go for a little bit over what you need to have them fit enough. Cross training is really important. Keep your horses entertained, also in their head. They need to be mentally and physically fit and enjoy their work. So lunging, long reining, hacking out, doing dressage, jumping. I have in Switzerland, we have some, they even do mounted games with their ponies when they're like in between and stuff like that. Trail competitions, anything that's fun, because it trains balance. It trains other muscle groups. It keeps them mentally engaged, because that's something that's really, really important for a driving horse. They need to be sharp and they need to be happy with what they're doing, because especially if you go through obstacles or cones, your horses need to think with you. It's not just like they can't just do what you ask for them. They need to think with you, and for that they need to be really engaged. There are some cool tracking devices that you can use, be it like Equisense or the Polar. I think the single team did have Equisense. We could work together with them, and they help you at your heart rate, how long you've been on the road, and what speed you've done. And so that's really, really cool, and it helps you to build up the fitness and to track the fitness. I really like those, and they're not very expensive. You get one of those devices for around 150 to 200 pounds, and that's really something you buy once and then they're good. And it's really nice. You can have them on your phone, so you can have the app and you see immediately, you have all the information. You can also share it with your vet if there's a problem, and if you see there's something wrong, or with the groom, or when the groom's working the horse, and then you get the information so you can actually track everything. Really nice idea.
It's funny because so many people have an Apple Watch or a Fitbit for themselves, and I know myself, I had an Apple Watch for a long time before I started going to the gym. And I spent a lot of money on that for myself. So actually, I think our horses are worth it for the amount that they give to us. And really interesting information that comes out of them. Actually, the analytics, I've seen it myself, the analytics that come out of them, especially for when you're building up cardio training, when you're building up interval training for marathon. And I think this point about fitness is really, really important, especially for our British carriage driving events. We in the UK, a lot of our events are not flat. The ground is not flat. There's usually hills, there's undulating ground. I'm thinking about some of the events that have particularly tough marathons that the horses need to be fit for. You can't come to an event unless you've done that preparation at home and expect your horse to perform at your best. So I know a lot of people are now starting their fitness work preparation for the season ahead. A lot of people struggle throughout the winter in Britain, I think, keep the horses fit, but this is the time to start preparing now. The first national event of the year is in in May. We're in April now. The first event national is in May. So we're just under a month away from that first national. So I hope everyone's preparing at home.
Yeah, and I would expect to have to think to get fitness up, you need at least 6 weeks. Yeah. If you're starting to train. So 6 to 8 weeks is something that I would expect, like when you build them up. Or you can even go swimming with your horse. It's absolutely brilliant. We have some horses who love to go swim. It's a very low impact, let's say, exercise that you do, but brilliant cardio training.
Yeah.
Then nutrition and supplements needs to be updated to the performance and the energy level. I know most horses do get too much energy usually, and I see a lot of horses that get a lot of energy, but not enough minerals and vitamins, especially if you feed a full food and you have a very easy keeper. They usually get, let's say, 4 pounds, and it's recommended that they have 6 pounds. Your horse would explode if you give them the 6 pounds, especially if they're out in the field in addition. But this means your horse is getting not enough minerals, because the mineral requirements is only fulfilled if they have the 6 pounds that they say is the daily requirement. So you're often better off giving them a mineral supplement, mineral vitamin mix that you can give even when they're just out in the field, because some horses just get fat from air. I know,
so true.
And I'd rather see them on the slimmer side, because the problem of laminitis is always something that's hanging like a Damocles sword over us. So energy is usually not a problem for most of the horses. If you need to go to higher energy, especially with the driving horses where we have those long endurance sprints that they have to do, you're better off feeding something that's more high in fat and fiber. So that's anything with linseed, rice bran, even beet pulp is a good option that you can add in to give them more energy long term, because most of the energy from the horses is not coming from the glucose and the starch short term that they get out in the stomach and in the small intestine, but is produced in the hindgut, especially in their cecum, where they actually get most of the energy out of fibers. That's why fiber is the most important for the horses. And then the second one is fat. They do not need a lot of carbohydrates. If you get any supplements, I don't care from whom you get them, but make sure they are from a reputable source where an independent lab is testing them, and where all products keep, for every batch they produce, a sample. So you can cross-reference if that's not done. It can be like the Belgian team who lost part of their Olympic medals because they had a doping positive horse on the eventing. So another thing that's really important to add to the diet from your horse the moment you start competing or to work them harder is salt. Just normal sea salt. Not one with iodine, just a normal salt. Give them 1 teaspoon in the morning and in the evening. It helps them also to drink more, and it helps them to hydrate, because just water alone doesn't stay in the tissue. It always needs to be in combination with minerals and salt. That's why salt is so important, and it's very cheap and it's very easy, and the horses eat it well, just like a spoon morning and evening is enough.
Martina, I'm just thinking about a question that might come from our members about salt, because a lot of people associate salt with electrolytes. So are they the same thing?
No, like salt is just part of the electrolytes. It's the most important because you have your natrium and your chloride in there. Yep. So these are the two things you have in salt. If you have sea salt, you also have some microminerals in there. I can't tell you which ones, because depending on from where the salt's coming, that's different. There is sea salts have like over 90 microminerals in them, and there's some who have like just 4. So we're giving it because of the NaCl that's in there, which are the basic requirements. It also helps with blood pressure, and when you have electrolytes, then you also have some potassium in there. Some do contain some manganese, some contain some other microminerals. The very good ones, these are the ones who also contain amino acids, because the moment horses are working very strong and start to lather up, so you see that white foam, this is when they start to lose protein through their skin. Well, horses are one of the only animals where that happens. That's why we need to support them then with electrolytes that also contain amino acids. But this is really in high summer or under intense work. This is not everyday electrolytes. Most electrolytes contain a lot of glucose, so high amount of sugar that makes them very palpable. And then they contain potassium and salt. These are the main ingredients that we have in there. But it's really important. Make sure also daily at home that your horse has a good mineral salt lick. But like I said, a good mineral supplement is something totally different than a salt lick. It's something that it's either in their food when you have a complete food and they get the amount that's recommended for their weight, not depending on the energy levels, but on that. That's why I like a powder or even if it's a ratio balancer, much better, because then I'm 100% sure that my horse gets the needed vitamins and minerals that they need. If you're going on competitions, there are some very nervous horses who have the tendency to get ulcers. They might need a gastroprotectant. There is things that are doping positive on a plant-based that you can use, or if you get paperwork from your vet, they can even compete now under GastroGuard or sucralfate. So there's also horses who get enormously nervous and very hyper, so these might need some calming supplements. There's some with B vitamins, there's magnesium is a very well-known one. There's some with passion flower and all those things. They are every horse reacts differently. So try them out before you go to the competition. And also, if you know your horse has the tendency to sweat a lot, they might need more B vitamins and more electrolytes. They come also in pastes that are highly, highly condensed that you can give directly in their mouth. You can often do that before they even start. So at the end of the marathon, they're not that much depleted. So, but try these things out at home in an intense training, or if you go to a club training where you do some marathon training, and see how the horses are reacting. Don't try them when you are at the competition for the first time and you don't know how your horses are reacting. Use tack before you go to the competition, please. You might laugh,
it's true,
but I've actually seen seasoned drivers don't go to the competition and they got a very nice, good-looking dressage harness and they thought, yes, I'm going to use that for the competition. And then after the first training, the horses are rubbed raw, because it's perhaps not the ideal fit, or it was not 100% sitting where it's supposed to sit. Make sure the tack fits with your horse's body shape, like this one here, who has an empathy collar because it has like a high shoulder motion, or if a horse is like not liking the pressure on the shoulder, use a collar or something like that. Try that out. Please speak with your support team that you have around you, or your trainers or anything. Make sure, that's something that I often see, that the buckles of the girth are not restricting the elbow movement. And the other thing is that your saddle that you have over your withers is not pinching, because like even if they will hold slightly back and not come over, so you always have a little bit of tension if there's some pinching, and that will kind of like ruin your dressage scores. The horses will get faster, tired, and you have a reduced performance. Same goes for the boots. Make sure they fulfill the FEI and British driving requirements, especially what comes to length and what closures are allowed to be used for your boots. And that can get you into trouble even without you doing something knowingly wrong. I also wash them thoroughly after every use, especially if you have been in sandy terrain. When you use the same for the marathon and afterwards for the cones, they might be rubbed raw under it, especially with sand. That is like, if you are in sandy terrains where you are competing, the horses are sweating and you have sand there, and if it's like just a little bit rubbing, you might get problems from the tack, even if it's perfectly fitting. Just a combination of leather, like sweat and that white foam in combination with sand under the tack can cause some raw, hot areas where they get an inflammation. Then something what helps for that, keep a bottle of vodka in your car for that, because alcohol with water mixed 50-50, put it on, it cools down those things immediately. You can apply it several times and it's not doping relevant. And if you were good, you can also use it for celebration.
Yeah.
Next one.
I think just for anyone watching this presentation that's new to carriage driving, at club and national events, if you're a novice, before your dressage and before your marathon, you will have a harness check. It is always advisable to have your harness checked by someone before you ever get to a competition. Make sure that harness is sitting properly, make sure it fits correctly, make sure that it actually benefits your horse in terms of their way of going. But certainly at competition, you will have a harness check done if you're a novice by an experienced driver or a judge before the dressage, and new for 2025. Now we're doing it before the marathon also. It used to be that it was only before dressage. It's now before dressage and marathon that we're checking harness.
And also, if you go international level, every horse after you come out will have his mouth checked for the bridle and the bit. And now from May 25 on, there will also be the check of the tightness of the noseband. They're not allowed to be tighter than 2 fingers. They have now used little triangle they can push through to make sure you are not allowed to have it too tight for the horses.
The noseband isn't something that we're bringing in this year at British Carriagedriving competitions, because any new FEI rules we take under advisement for a year before we implement them. I have seen these devices, can buy them online on the FEI website, and a lot of people I think would be surprised at what the recommended noseband tightness is compared to actually what theirs may be, what they've been training at for a long time. So you can buy those online. It's not coming into BC competitions just yet. It may well be something that comes in the future, but certainly for FEI, it is coming in. We're doing a lot of work on that last year, weren't they, Martina? Testing it in different prototypes of devices.
Yeah, and from the 1st of May on, it's complementary for any sport, no matter dressage, driving, jumping, endurance, all of them do have the 2-finger rules. That's now in force. horse.
Yep.
Luckily. Finally.
Absolutely.
So next one, please. So shoeing, my favorite topic. Make sure your horses are well balanced and the shoe complements their unique conformation. If you have a toe-in horse, it needs to be toe-in front. If it's toe-out in the hinds, if it's base narrow, you can use some wider branches on the outside. Anything that helps your horse to be at best is really important, because if the balance is not right, you will get performance and you will predispose them to injuries. Slipping, tendon injuries, pathology, SI, sore backs, everything can be caused by poor foot balance. It's really important that you address that before you really go into full competition mode, because that's usually already quite a lot of strain during training. And if you then go full competition and the balance is not 100% right, and then you wonder, oh, where's that tension injury coming from? It's very, very rare, especially in singles, that you get a tendon injury from when they kick themselves. Teams, sometimes it can happen, especially when you have like 4 in quite a tight turn, but it's still quite uncommon. Most of the time, it's like a repetitive micro strains from an unbalanced foot or another problem higher up. Control x-rays are often helpful if you do not know what's really wrong, and they're also very good guidance for the farrier and also for you to have a baseline what's going on and where can we do it better. Most competition horses profit from some frog support and DIM, especially in summer when we have like very hard ground, because it just uses the concussion. And if we are in a very soft ground, like here in the arena, it's very deep, they tire less because they sink in less. So it's mimicking the barefoot, so they float a little bit higher up. The hemodynamics of the foot are better. So it's just like supporting the whole limb, and with that also the thoracic sling and the core muscles a little bit better. I say, depending on the weather or the ground conditions, it might need adapting. So and developing, or when you see, oh, my horses, especially if you have younger horses or growing or building up muscles, they're at the moment very base narrow, don't have a lot of quadriceps, they might profit. And even if it's just something simple like some lateral extensions in the hinds, you have like pairs that might be a little bit more problematic. But if you have a single horse, especially when you're starting out, absolutely no problem. They will not pull out of the shoes easier if they have a lateral extension. It's something else if you are in pairs, but that's why you have the bell boots over them. So that shouldn't happen. The shoeing cycle should not be more than 6 weeks for a competition horse. 5 to 6 weeks is normal. Adapt your shoeing schedule to when your competitions are. Make sure, ideally, the horses are already shot for a week. And if it's like at the end of the cycle, rather shorten the cycle than prolong it. Because like longer toes expose horses more to tendon injuries, slow them down. You lose again time, especially in soft ground, also very hard ground. Studs is really important. You have them or put them in when in doubt for if the ground is like slippery or not, then not using them, and remove them as soon as you don't need them anymore. Often tape the shoes before I go to the marathon. That prevents or makes the likability of them losing shoes a little bit less, especially if they have a little bit more length on the back to support the feet well. Fast shoes do cost you a lot of time in marathon or also in the cones, expose your horses to injuries, and also can cause elimination the next day when they're too sore from the concussion, when they have been running without shoes. Have some backup shoes. Like, it's always possible that you lose a shoe during a marathon or even just during transport. Have the pads and the studs and the DIM with you in case the farrier who is at the competition doesn't have those things to replace for you. Just tell your farrier to keep the old shoes and like duct tape them together. If you have pads, ask him to have a pad that's still fitting and pack some DIM into like 3 backs, that's enough. Have them with you in case you need to put them back on when you lost them. Always have some extra studs, because sometimes they're not 100% screwed in, and lost your studs during the marathon but still have the shoes on, and you would like to have them again for the cones and have no extras. That might be a problem.
Yep, been there. Been there. And if anyone is interested in hearing more about this topic, this lady is the expert on this, and we recently ran a member seminar called Hoof to Harness, Equine Foot Health for Driving Success. It's available on our YouTube channel now, and I'll put the link in the description below for anyone that wants to go and have a look at it. But there's some seriously interesting information in there that I wish I'd known a long time ago. It's changed my own horse's life, so please do go and have a watch of that, because this doesn't even scratch the surface of the knowledge that Martina has on shoeing and equine foot health. So I'll put that in the description below for anyone that wants to have a watch.
Next one, please, Cam.
Yeah, there you go.
So we're now down to travel. Look at beautiful Percy here, all ready for traveling to the World Championships. Hydration is a very important topic, because you need to know you get a reduced performance if a horse is dehydrated by about 20. And this can take up to 4 days for them to recover from it. So if you have longer travel, that's anything between 6 to 8 hours and longer is deemed as long travel. You need hydration. This is really, really important. You can either stop every 2 to 3 hours and give them some water. If you have some horses, I know some horses don't drink, so you need to be a little bit cunning and get the water into them, like carrots or even cucumbers. You give them some beet pulp. You can soak the hay before you take that with you, so there is at least some fluid in there, because horses lose between 5 and 10% of their body weight during the long-term transport. That's quite a lot. So have enough water with you. Sometimes they like it better when there's some electrolytes in it, or apple juice, or some horses like tea. Just encourage them to drink. Horses need to drink between 50 and 80 liters during transport or when there is a warmer day. That's quite a lot. Have enough water with you, and know your horses. Some horses are very picky with water. We had some when we would go to certain competitions where there was chlorine in the water. They would refuse to drink it. So yep. You better have some water with you. We had literally one who had to get IV fluids because he was such a stubborn horse and refused to drink. Yep. So wet hay is also a good thing to have when you have horses who have the tendency to get airway infections or a little bit problems with breathing. You wet the hay, it's less dusty, so that can be very helpful, because if they have constantly the hay net in front of them that's kind of like dusty, then it's perhaps not very helpful. Horses are prone to ulcers. Transport can be very stressful and they don't eat properly, or they're kind of like get very excited. Use again some gastroprotectant. It can be something similar like easy, like the TRM, the GNF paste, or you can get some UlcerGuard from the vet with a prescription and stuff like that. There's lots of different ones. Some like aloe juice. Like there's lots of different options. So know your horse and try what is best and what works best for you and your horse. Height of the head and the head position are important. Horses need to have the ability during transport to lower their head and to kind of like breathe out all the snodder that's kind of like accumulating up there. If they have the head constantly up there and they're tight short, and the probability that they get an airway infection is much, much higher than when they have the ability to stretch out and snort everything out from time to time. Don't forget, traveling in the transport is extremely demanding for the body. Like they did research on that. Last year came a new one out from New Zealand when they looked at that. Standing in the back of the transport, be as demanding as running a marathon for the horses. Never forget that. That's why it's so important that you give them a day or two off after arriving at the competition, before you go into competition, when you have done these long travels. That's usually when you go to the bigger competition, you arrive at least a day early so the horses can recover from that. If it's longer travels, like everything over 10 to 12 hours, you need to split it up, and they need to have stabling in between, not just a break on the transport where they still stand like that. If you can't open up and they have their own boxes, then you need to have stabling in between. They need to get out. They need to be able to stretch, perhaps to walk a little bit. They should be hand walked at least 20 minutes before you put them in the stables for good and go for a night. Even when you're very tired, please walk your horses for about 20 minutes just to get the circulation up, to allow them to stretch their neck, to breathe before they're back in the stables. Closely how much water they drink and how much they eat, and especially the 48 hours after a long travel distance, to be sure you don't go into a problem where they develop colic because they're not drinking enough. Same goes for the electrolytes. Sometimes the pastes that you can give them before or after marathon are also helpful when they're sweating a lot on the travel. Just give it that they recover faster and they drink a little bit more during the transport. Again, know your horse, have the tendency to sweat. Do they get very excited? The good drinkers are the good travelers. It's very helpful, longer travels, to prevent tightening up of the muscles and of the back. So if you know your horses have the tendency to come out stiff after they had some longer travel, it might be helpful to just put some tape on and help them with that a little bit. Okay.
It's funny, you're taking me back to, again, my grooming days here and all the things that I used to have to consider when I was a groom. And I remember going long distances, and I would go into the back of the lorry every hour and check the horses, check their temperatures, even looking at their facial expressions. Does that horse look normal compared to how he normally looks? Is he cold? Is he eating? Is he drinking? All of these different things that you need to think about. And again, I'm thinking about all of our grooms here who sometimes go away and look after 4 or 5 horses at every event. And it's so important that you know those horses before you travel a distance, to know what is normal for them and what do they like and what do they not like. There was some that I worked with that didn't like drinking at all in the lorry, and they would refuse to drink in the lorry. And the minute that they got off, they would want a full bucket of water, and that was just that horse. Whereas others, you could tempt them to take some fluids. We had a big trough that ran the length of the lorry in front of the horses, and we could stand at the top and throw some mash down into that trough, and it was great for them because it had such a high water content. But temperature was always the thing that I worried about when I travelled. Are they warm enough? Do I have rugs on hand to be able to change rugs if I need to? It's so much to consider. So again, this is really fantastic information for people to think about, especially those who may be in the south that are travelling to the north this year to compete, or the north travelling to the south, because for some people it's potentially a 12-hour drive in Britain before you even go abroad. Go on to the next slide, will you?
So then we come to the vet check. I'm not going to tell you how to pat your horse and how to make their feet nice and shiny, but I will tell you, be at least 20 to 30 minutes ready before your scheduled time. Walk your horse, warm them up, at least 20 minutes in hand. So 15 minutes at walk, and trot them up, and walk, trot, to make sure they move well. Especially if you have slightly older horses or stiffer horses, they profit massively from that. And even if we had horses, I was walking with them 45 minutes at least before, but then they always passed vet check without any problem. Just again, know your horse, know what's best for them. If they do have some slight joint problems, or stiffness, can work beforehand with your vet. There are some legal things you can use, that you can even use IM or IV, whether if you use like some Cartrafin, equine or legend or similar things. These are very, very helpful and will not give you a doping positive horse, and you can even do them a week or two before you start. Like, for example, Cartrafin is usually, it's 4 in a row that you give once a week before you start. Helps to regenerate the cartilage. That's not 100%. Adequan is more also for joints, but helps also riding motion. Same goes for legend. That's hyaluronic acid you give IV. And these are all things that help the horse to move better without making them positive. If you have a reactive horse, take advantage and walk them the morning before the vet check, and so they can see the arena, they see the flower pots. I know they will put some more there, but at least, like, if they can just see, oh, this is the tent where the judges are going to be, these are the little huts, it just helps you to have a smoother vet check and for them to be already a little bit familiarized with the area that they have to walk and trot in hand for you. Veterinarians are usually very friendly and we try to make it as smooth and short as possible. So be proud of yourself and how you look at your horse and enjoy that moment. It means that you go to a big competition and you're doing very well. So enjoy it.
At national competitions for British Carriagedriving, there isn't a trot up check, sorry. So this is more towards those who are aiming at international, but there are some people this year who may be stepping up from the advanced classes and going for their 2-star qualification and their 3-star qualification.
Yeah.
So that's a big change, because it's also an extra day before the start of the competition. Usually at a national you would do Friday, Saturday, Sunday. If you go to an international and you have a vet check, you would start on the Thursday. So it's an extra day, it's an extra day's travelling, it's an extra day on site for a lot of people. So I think we used to do a vet check at the Young Drivers Championships as well, because it was good preparation for the young drivers who would potentially step up to international. But it's good practice, I think, for anyone to have a horse that does know what a vet check is. It does know the process of trotting up in front of a vet. But there's some horses that maybe don't know what that is, and if a vet asked you to trot them up in front of you, they might be a little bit surprised.
Yeah, I think it's always a good exercise that your horse is able to walk and trot next to you in hand, even if it's just at home for a normal lameness or just to check if everything's fine for fitness. Also for you, if you go, even if you just go for a national event where you're there Friday, Saturday, Sunday, after Saturday, the marathon, on Sunday, you want to know your horse is still sound on Sunday morning. Yep. Before you tap them up. So you need to be able to trot your horse in hand.
Yeah, absolutely. Okay, we'll move on to the next one.
Yeah. So during the competition, is again, salt is the most important. Like I said, give them a spoonful in the morning and in the evening. Absolutely easy to do, doesn't cost you a lot, and is very, very helpful and helps with performance. When the horses are sweating, I think it's really important to know, horses do have a different temperature zone where they feel comfortable. Horses are like cold weather better than hot weather. Horses start to sweat with temperatures over 15 degrees Celsius. It's already, I start to feel more or less comfortable, but not hot. And that means, so the moment we go in 18, 19, 20 degrees Celsius, horses will need electrolytes over water or food because they will sweat. If we go into higher temperatures and where they start to lather up, we might need electrolytes together with amino acids. There's different electrolytes on the market. Just have a look at them. Normally, the normal electrolytes are okay. You get them for a big tub for around £20. You don't have to buy something that's extremely expensive. But if you know you're going to go something where they will sweat more and it's in a down south where you can have easily 30 degrees and you run your marathon in 30 degrees, it's really important that you have also some, often come pre-packed, like in little sachets, so you're not going to have like big buckets or tubs full. Have some with you that also contain amino acids. Horses often profit from a vitamin B paste in addition to magnesium. That's again, know your horse, know what's best for them, and try it out in an intense training or on a training weekend to see how are they reacting. Is it helping or not? Make sure they drink enough water. Here we are again, if it's warm and hot, they will drink up to 100 litres a day. A lot of carrying of water for the grooms. But buckets of, make sure they drink enough. They need to drink at least 50 litres. This is the minimum they have to drink on one day to make sure they have enough water and you're not getting into the territory of constipation, which is not fun when you have colic. Short horses have always hay available, no matter if right before or after work. I know there were times when we said, oh, they shouldn't eat hay an hour before they go into work. That's like proven to be not correct. Horses should have hay up till the last minute. When they're not in the harness and not prepared, they can have hay without any problems. They can have hay immediately after work. Not a problem. Again, nutrition, high fiber, high fat, not too high in starches and carbohydrates. Horses do not very well if they have like too much carbohydrates, and a very good daily mineral supplement. They feed concentrate 2 hours after the exercise, exactly because horses are working hard. A stomach is kind of like not working 100% because a lot of the blood is in the muscles and it needs to come back to the intestinal part. Hay is not a problem if it stays in there longer. But if we have starches and a carbohydrate feed, it can ferment if the stomach and the small intestine is not working 100%, and that can cause some dysbacteriosis and lead to problem. That concentrate only hours after exercise or after they cool down decently. You know your horse, when you know it's like relaxed now, everything's cooled down, then they can have their concentrate, but not that the concentrate is already in when they come in from the marathon and they really like gulp it down. They can have the hay. That's it. Okay, they need water, they need electrolytes, but ideally not concentrate. And if you're out in competition, it's good for their mind if you can hand graze them for at least 30 minutes every day. Just to relax, it also gives you a very nice bond with your horse, and also helps them, if that's a possibility, to get just familiarized with what's going around. And you will see with every competition that you go to or every trade, they get calmer because for them, that's a comfortable thing they're doing. It's not work and it's something enjoyable, and it just helps them to feel at their best. Next one. During competition, warm up and cool down. Please warm your horses up. It's really, really important. So, again, like for the vet check, make sure before you start working your horses to prevent injuries, they're decently warmed up. That means at least 15 to 20 minutes at the walk. I don't care if you walk them first in hand before you put them into the carriage, or if you just do a nice drive around in the carriage, or when you go down to the arena where you're going to work. They need to be decently warmed up before you start working them, especially before the marathon. They need to be warmed up, and that's usually it's like built up like that you actually have enough space and they warmed up decently before you start. But sometimes it's not. So please still make sure you give your horse that ability to walk with a long neck and moving nicely forward in a really engaged walk, and so they can warm up. Do some serpentines, bend them, do some big circles. and for about 5 minutes both hands relaxed, and then you can start to work them properly. But we need that time, especially when it's cooler weather. It's really important. We need those 15 to 20 minutes, everything to get very well nourished with blood, especially also the cuffing bone. Especially when the ground is hard and the weather is cold, the probability for injuries are just much higher when we don't warm them up properly. Same goes for the cool down. They need 10 to 15 minutes at walk. At relaxed again, they can stretch out. Heartbeat comes down quicker, helps them to cool down, gets the oxygen back into the muscles. They recover much faster. At the marathon, there's usually water that you can have, like pour it over the whole horse. There's no need to scratch. It doesn't make a big difference if you scratch the water or not. Just pour it over constantly. That's best to cool them down.
So you from a vet's perspective, you don't need to scrape a horse down after it's been wet. It's interesting because for so many years that they said you must scrape for this to actually work, but I did see something a while ago which said actually that's a lot of nonsense. So from your perspective as an FEI vet, that's correct. You don't need to scrape them, yeah.
Yes, there is quite a lot of studies who show that now it doesn't make a difference. Water is quite a good conductor for heat out. What is most important, you don't have to scrape it off, but just replenish it with cold water. Okay. Just pour it over again and again and again. Walk the horses a little bit, pour it over again and again. Walking in between helps, because like the blood pools in the center, and then when you walk again, it goes to the periphery, cool it down again. But you'll see like that, you get the heartbeat down the fastest. The only thing that cools faster is when you have mist bands. But on a competition, that's something we don't have. We just use buckets, but that works quite well. Yeah. Sometimes you have horses who have noses who collapse, so you can put the strips over, helps them with breathing. They come in really cool pattern. Say a little bit more in detail. If you arrive at the competition or at the end of the marathon, make sure your times are correct when you hand in the paperwork at the finish lines. When you stop them, that's like, I've seen that too many times, especially when there was a stop in between and you forget that. Please, this is also part of your end of competition, even though it's like not so much with the horse. But while one is handing in the paperwork, the other one take off the boots immediately. I would take the boots off as soon as possible. The boots need to stay with the horse. So after passing through the gate where your time stamped, they need to stay on the carriage with the horse. Do not remove them. They need to stay on the carriage, even if you have helpers from outside. This is just the rules. Tendons get very, very hot during work. And I mean hot. We talk about 51 to 52 degrees Celsius. Wow. And they still don't know exactly which the horses have in their body to actually prevent things from degrading. They do get too long, too hot. This happens in the tendons. That's when we get those so-called core lesions. When you wrap tendons, keep them hot and work them, and especially if they have also foot imbalances, that's usually the reason why we see core injuries. We have tendon injuries from trauma. That's usually from the outside. It's usually the superficial who gets a bump, sometimes down into the deep. But if we have core lesions in the deep or in the superficial, that's usually not from a bump, that's from overheating and foot imbalances. So removing boots after a marathon is very, very important. Then the water buckets, throw them over, walk them, water again. The fitness is good. They should go 60 or lower within 10 minutes. That's also something that you can check at home. That gives you an indication how well they are from their fitness point. It's very easy to verify. You either can check it here on the hand, or you can actually use a stethoscope or just have your hand. You often feel the heartbeat quite well on the chest. Then again, electrolytes after the marathon or hard work when they have been levering up. Often for most of the work at home, it's enough just when it was a hot day, just give them 1 spoon of electrolytes together with their normal food and hay directly after work, wake with the rest of the food 2 hours after that. But we mentioned that already.
I've got a question just about thinking about our classes that we offer at British Carriagedriving events, and also that our affiliated clubs offer at their events. And we now run small equine and very small equine classes. So from the littlest of a little American miniatures to I think it's about 11 hands. So the advice that you've given on warming up and cooling down, would you say that's the exact same advice for those very small equines as well, or on those small equines? Yeah, exactly the same.
Yeah, because like a Shetland pony can have the same fitness as a Shire. There's like the heartbeat can be a little bit different, but do not underestimate. You wouldn't say a Jack Russell can run less far than a Great Dane. Do the same. Our fitness is often better than the one from the big ones. Yeah. And the same goes for the little ones. Do not underestimate miniature horses and the shetties. Absolutely not. These are the same athletes as the big one. They just look a little cuter.
Good to hear. Thanks, Martina.
Then again, after marathon health checks, please check your horses. When you are done in the morning or in the afternoon, check the horses in the evening. Drop them up in the hand. You are somewhere at the team event, it doesn't have to be a vet, but have somebody who is like able to see if something's wrong in the gait or if the gait is off from your horse. Check the legs and the whole body for warm spots or sensitivity. Once you take the harness off and you hose them down, go with your hand over, feel for warm spots. It's also often easy to see it when they have like slight sensitivity or warm spots, because these are usually the ones drying faster than the rest of the body. So you see them drying off after you hose them down. You can see there's over the chest or over the shoulder something that dries faster and you have the hair sticking out a little bit. That's when you usually want to get out your ice or your vodka, like he has mentioned again, and use a class 3B laser during competition. Icing is possible, get a little pulsating magnetic field. These are all things that can be done. With the swelling, reduce it. That doesn't make you positive. And they're fine. You can put some tape on when you feel they're a little bit very tight. There's lots of things you can do. Check the horses in hand in the evening and most importantly in the morning before you tack them up. And again, warm them up well, especially after the marathon. They will be a little stiff. Give them enough time to walk and then go for the in-harness check, because usually the vet check after the marathon is competition is in harness the next day, and it's on purpose in harness because we will see if the harness has been rubbing and if the horses are sound wearing a harness, because often they're sound in hand and you put the harness on and they're like ouch, 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 pressure. So This is why the vet check after the marathon for the cones is in harness and not in hand.
Thank you so much for joining us, Martina. Information that you've given us tonight has been really helpful. I think it will help a lot of people who are competing from grassroots and indoor level all the way up to international level. And real food for thought. The competition season officially kicks off this month into next month. So thank you for joining us again. As I said earlier, if anyone would like to find out a little bit more about the shoeing side, information that Martina was talking about, do head over to the video that's down in the description box below, and make sure that you like and subscribe to our YouTube channel to keep us. We have got a huge series of videos coming out over the next year, as well as all of our monthly member seminars and some additional pre-recorded seminars like this one. So thanks for joining us and stay tuned for more.